Park is the central character in our story, and perhaps the least favored by his educator, who does not fully comprehend his way of thinking. As a consequence for skipping classes, the teacher compels Park and other students to hold a bucket of water above their heads, a relatively common punishment to discipline disobedient youths at school. Nevertheless, as Park takes pleasure in provoking his teacher, who persistently mistreats them, he chooses to let the bucket of water fall, drenching his teacher, who erupts in fury and scolds him even more severely. Soaked and now facing additional trouble, Park ultimately gets transferred to a different school because his father has obtained an outstanding position at Yangda Industries and can afford a superior education for his son. On his first day of classes, Park meets So, a quiet young woman who has no interest in talking to him, and although they share a workspace, they don't exchange any words. That's when a boy enters the classroom and attracts the attention of everyone present. His name is G, and his classmates don't look at him out of admiration, but because he is the bully and the fool of the school, who happens to be untouchable because his father is a millionaire and the leader of Yangda Industries. At that particular moment, Young focuses his attention on a young man with spectacles named Lee, whom he persistently bullies, ridiculing his nerdy appearance and splashing his drink on him. Observing this, Park attempts to step in, but Z's voice halts him. She advises him not to engage in those issues, as Gyun is untouchable, and he will encounter significant trouble if he dares to interfere with him. Curious about the young man's identity, Park thinks for a few minutes. Meanwhile, the bully keeps mocking Lee, taking embarrassing photos of him in his vulnerable state. Unable to bear it any longer, Park stands up firmly and yells at G to stop now. However, the bully is very aware of his role and ignores him to continue mocking the young man. At that moment, Park snatches the drink from his hand, causing G to look at him with disdain. A few seconds later, the teacher enters the classroom, and the protagonist stares at him, hoping he will do something against G, who continues to mock Lee. To his utter surprise, the teacher completely turns a blind eye and instructs Park to take his seat so they can commence the class. It is precisely at this moment that the young man comes to the realization of the immense power G possesses within the school. His father's significant influence has rendered him someone untouchable, allowing him to act as he pleases, without regard for the emotions of those he harms. All of this only serves to make him extremely angry, and for the very first time in the entire history of the school, Kun is about to experience a taste of his own medicine when Park delivers a substantial right hook directly on his jaw, sending him sprawling to the ground. The rest of the students watch in utter astonishment at what has just transpired. The educator, who hastily moves to defend G, sends both students to the principal's office, where the bully receives all the medical staff's attention, while Park is struck with sticks as part of his disciplinary action. 1 hour later, when the parents of both boys convene in the principal's office, he notifies them that Park will be promptly expelled for his behavior. However, Chang, G's father and the wealthy leader of Yangda Industries, interrupts the principal to say that it won't be necessary, since Park's father is a valuable employee of his company, and he doesn't want this minor altercation to disrupt the lives of his people. He tells the young man that if he kneels before him and his son and apologizes for what he has done, the whole issue will be resolved with just a few weeks of detention. It appears that Chang enjoys this type of reprimand, as making individuals kneel reinforces his authority. Nevertheless, Park declines to do such a thing, since the only one who was truly at fault was G for being a bully who ridicules his classmates. Park's father, who has consistently been proud of how he raised his son, stands by him and supports his decision not to kneel, which not only results in Park being expelled from the school, but also leads to his father being dismissed from his new position that he had only recently secured. Later, while father and son are having a drink at a local bar, they start brainstorming ideas about what to do with their lives now that they have no jobs or studies. It is here that Park tells his father they should open their own bar. Upon hearing this idea, his father's eyes light up. He has always wanted to have his own bar restaurant, something he is passionate about, aside from being a machinery operator at Yangda Enterprises. In the subsequent days, father and son initiate their plan and make significant progress on their ambitious project. One evening, while the father is cycling home, he is tragically struck by an intoxicated driver who was recklessly speeding down the incorrect lane, leading to his father being fatally injured in the middle of the road. Soon after, the police contact Park to inform him that they have apprehended the individual responsible for his father's death. However, this individual has paid a substantial sum to prevent the case from proceeding to court, and they also offer Park a significant amount of money to withdraw the charges. Upon hearing this, Park feels heartbroken, as it seems very likely that his father's killer will escape justice simply because he has wealth. The person next to him carefully examines the highway camera photos and recognizes the car. It turns out that a few days ago, Gyun was at school bragging about his new limited edition luxury car and invited her for a ride, but she refused. Park becomes furious upon hearing this, so he asks if she's really sure about what she's saying. And when she confirms that she remembers it perfectly, Park storms out of the police station in search of G. His first stop is at the hospital, where fortunately he finds G at the door smoking a cigarette. He sustains some minor injuries that shortly won't amount to anything in comparison to what Park intends to do to him. Before G can even react, the protagonist is already on top of him, assaulting him relentlessly, until at one point he seizes a rock from the ground, and just before he ends the affluent boy's life, Zoe appears and persuades him to stop, until the police arrive and take him into custody. Back at the police station, Park spends the subsequent days confined until Chang arrives to visit him and shares an old story. It turns out he was acquainted with his father more than 2 decades ago. They were once friends, and that's why he profoundly regrets his passing and is prepared to offer him a new opportunity. If he kneels before him and expresses remorse for assaulting his son, Chang will arrange to have the charges dismissed, and he will be freed. Furthermore, he can be employed by him as a member of the cleaning staff in his company. Park, who possesses a great deal of pride, informs him that his son merited every single blow, and if the authorities hadn't intervened, it would be him who would be grieving at this very moment. Upon hearing these words, Chang departs and utilizes his considerable influence to expedite the trial. At that juncture, his attorney uncovers the fact that G was responsible for the death of Park's father while driving under the influence, so he intends to use this as a potential justification for Park's actions and requests that he be granted parole. However, Chang discovers this information, and consequently, he bribes the judge to ensure that the young man is sentenced to prison. Following the verdict, Park receives a sentence of 3 years in prison, and he is promptly taken to begin serving his sentence. Once incarcerated, it becomes evident that Park is significantly younger than the other inmates, who quickly attempt to humiliate and abuse the newcomer. One of the inmates desires Park to kneel down and comply with his demands, but the young man bravely defends himself, resulting in him being struck in the leg, after which they proceed to beat him severely. The following day, Park receives a visit from So, who informs him that Chang has generously offered to cover the expenses for his university education, all because she was the one who intervened that night, as Park was prepared to kill G. Park expresses his congratulations to her, acknowledging that it's a significant opportunity and extends his gratitude for intervening that night, as he genuinely didn't want to become a murderer. 2 years swiftly pass by, and the protagonist is released ahead of schedule due to exemplary behavior, so having learned of his release, extends an invitation to him to visit Itaewon, a nearby city where she is presently completing her studies and desires for them to reunite and catch up on their lives. When Park arrives in Itaewon, he notices that this city is unlike any other. Here, people celebrate Halloween like in America, making it very colorful and vibrant. He ends up wandering the streets for a while until he meets So, who leaves him speechless. The young woman has changed a lot. She is no longer the skinny and shy girl he knew in school. Now she possesses stunning hair and dazzles with her remarkable confidence. During their conversation, Zoe reveals to her that she will soon graduate and commence working for Yangda, while Park mentions he will pursue his father's aspiration, so he will establish his own restaurant and has selected Itaewon as the location to do it. We journey to the future, precisely 7 years, and observe that So is already a successful businesswoman at Yangda Industries and holds a prestigious position. As she walks through the city streets, she comes across a bar that's about to open and recognizes the name on the facade. Not far from there, Park is breaking up a fight between a young girl and an older woman. The lady tries to slap the young girl, but Park grabs her by the arm. Then the young girl strikes first and slaps the woman before running away. The name of this young woman is Giseo, who happens to be a well-known influencer in the vicinity and takes pleasure in executing pranks occasionally, and this time she was facing the repercussions of her actions. At that particular moment, Park observed that Giseo was not by herself. There was a guy concealed nearby capturing everything with his phone, and when it was time to make a quick escape, they both got into a taxi together. The name of this gentleman is Yang, who is deeply infatuated with Giseo and persistently follows her wherever she goes. He consistently supports her in all her wild and imaginative ideas for generating content for her social media platforms, where she is on the verge of reaching a significant milestone of 1 million followers. The following day, Chang and Giseo are riding a scooter together while she captures footage of her journey through the bustling city. At that moment, a child suddenly crosses their path, making Jang break hard. He wasn't fully aware of the situation as he was grinning at the camera. As a result, Giseo flies through the air and lands on a young man in a costume handing out flyers for a local eatery. This person is Park, promoting his restaurant. A bear costume was all he could afford with his limited funds. There, Giseo recognizes him from the previous night and expresses her gratitude for defending her. His performance was absolutely perfect for enhancing the likes on the video. At that precise moment, Park appears to feel unwell and collapses, so Giseo contacts Yang to assist her, successfully getting Park to the hospital, where they inform him that his fainting was caused by extreme exhaustion he is undergoing. Thus, they recommend him to rest for several days. Subsequently, Giseo expresses her gratitude once more, to which Park responds that if she genuinely wishes to show her appreciation, she should invite her friends and visit his establishment. However, Giseo views herself as a social media influencer and refuses to visit a mediocre bar. That evening, Park finds himself at his bar, which remains empty, and he worries that patrons may never arrive, prompting him to venture out to nearby establishments where he intends to market himself effectively. Not far from there, Giseo is with her friends at one of Yangda's bars. However, when they ask for their IDs, it turns out she is underage, so they are denied entry. Angry, the young woman walks through the streets and comes across Park's bar, where she decides to try her luck and hands over her fake ID. The person in charge immediately realizes it's not real, but noticing that the bar has no customers, decides to take a risk and lets them in. Meanwhile, Park arrives at a newly opened bar and meets with Sue, who has been appointed as the new manager of the place by none other than Chan. There, Park and Sue walk for a while through the streets. As they talk, the protagonist confesses that business is not going well, to which he asks him to show her his bar. Maybe she can give him some advice to improve his service. When they arrive at the bar, Zhu recognizes Giseo, whom he denied entry to his bar a few minutes earlier and knows is not old enough to drink, so he excuses himself and tells Park they will have to postpone their conversation for later. Inside the bar, a friend of Giseo is completely drunk and causing problems, so Park agrees to let So leave and promises to call her later. Then as So walks away from the bar, she calls the police and reports Park, informing the authorities about a bar that allows underage patrons. At the police station, the person in charge sticks to the story about the fake ID, but the officers threaten to lock them all up. At that precise moment, Ji appears and notifies the officers that he is there for his brother Yang, who is an heir to the substantial Yang fortune and should not be detained. Upon hearing this information, the officers promptly release Yang and his companions. Before departing, Ji turns to Park with a haughty expression and offers his assistance, which causes Park to become infuriated and ultimately be restrained by the officers. The evening concludes with the establishment being penalized and mandated to shut down for a duration of 70 days. As they exit the police station, Giseo anticipates having a conversation with Park. However, he is seething with anger over the incident and is not inclined to listen to her justifications. At that juncture, Ji re-emerges and commences taunting Park, bringing up the memory of his father's demise. All Gion wants is for Park to hit him so he can press charges and send him back to prison, but the young man stays calm and with just a couple of phrases manages to chill the villain's blood. Park tells him that while he was in prison, he had plenty of time to think about his revenge, which will culminate when he kills him with his own hands, so he should be prepared because sooner or later that day will come. Soon after, we observe Giseo heading home when a young man approaches, claiming to be a fan and expressing a desire to buy her a drink. She politely declines, but the man becomes insistent, attempting to grab her arm. She successfully breaks free and runs, but he begins pursuing her down the street. A few minutes later, the young woman manages to reach a public restroom, where she screams for help. At that moment, she sees a young man with his back turned trying to use the restroom, and it turns out to be Park, who intervenes and gives the harasser a beating. After this, Giseo is smitten by Park's brave performance and promises to help him improve his bar, using all her social media influence to attract more customers. On the other hand, we see So, who is being congratulated by Chang, who has learned that Park's bar has been shut down and she helped make that happen. Back with Giseo, she has invited Park for a drink to thank him for saving her. There, she tells him some things he needs to improve about the bar. Firstly, he should fire Hyun, his cook, because she lacks talent, and also because she is a transgender woman, which will bring bad publicity. Upon hearing that, Park gets upset and stands up abruptly, but ends up collapsing to the floor. Therefore, Giseo approaches him and, seeing him calm, is carried away by her feelings and tries to kiss him, but he wakes up before that happens. The next day, the young woman returns to the bar and apologizes for what she said. Nevertheless, the rest of the plan is still in motion, so she has brought reinforcements. Chang, the troublesome boy from the other girl, wants to work for Park. With this in mind, they ask Hyun to prepare some food and take the opportunity to point out what she is doing wrong and what she can improve. Giseo doesn't know anything about cooking, but she knows how to sell, and presentation is very important. Additionally, the bar needs more light. It's impossible to take a decent selfie with so much darkness, so they also remodel some parts of the place. Then, she starts her social media campaign, where her loyal followers show up at the bar that night to support and try the food. During the night, Jung feels very appreciated by his new group of friends, and when the night ends, he goes home where he confronts his father about how poorly he has been treated all these years. Chang tells him that he doesn't care if he has felt unwanted, just like his brother Gyun. Both are disposable, and it doesn't matter if they leave and don't return. Upon hearing this, Jang gathers his belongings and leaves home. He then uses the little money he has to rent a place near the bar, where he is happy working with his new friends. Later, we see Chang meeting with So, where he discusses the future of the company and presents the idea of marrying her to his son Gyun, so she can take charge of the company and prevent Gyun from ruining everything with his irresponsible life. As they stroll past Zo's bar, Chang observes the lengthy queue in front of Park's bar, which slightly irritates him, prompting him to inquire if So will stay loyal to him when the opportune moment arrives. Inside the bar, patrons are thoroughly enjoying themselves as they sample the cocktails Choi expertly prepares. However, Giseo realizes that many people are not enjoying the food, and when the night ends, she goes to Park to tell him that they need to do something about Hyun. Park, who had also noticed this situation, takes a month's salary and gives it to Hyun in front of everyone, who thinks it's her severance pay and that she has been fired.
Your echo fades into the void. A loved one's bright, now destroyed. I found my voice, I found my way. No more games, I won't stay. You can't pull me back, I'm over you. The chains are gone, I'm broken through. 1,000 nights, I'm born anew. The past is dead, I'm over you. You can't pull me back, I'm over you. The chains are gone, I'm broken through. 1,000 nights, I'm born anew. The past is dead, I'm over you.
Park elaborates to her that this is so she can acquire fresh ingredients and hone her skills. They have been companions for many years, and he desires for her to become the finest chef in Taiwan, and he will be there to provide his unwavering support. In another segment of the narrative, we observe a group of girls closely monitoring Giseo on social media platforms. It turns out these girls are her detractors and were the ones who contacted the police on the night at the bar, but who they actually reached out to was Ji to notify him that his brother was intoxicated and causing disturbances. These young women appear in front of the bar to ambush Giseo, and when she discovers they were the ones responsible for causing the trouble, her beloved Park lunges at them and slaps them, with the leader receiving the brunt of it. The following day, Giseo has some excellent news. She has successfully managed to get a television channel to feature the bar on a Trendy Spots program. And that evening, when Park attends the channel, it turns out that G is in charge and only orchestrated it to mock them and give them false hopes. As Park makes his way back to the bar alongside Giseo, he reassures her not to be concerned, emphasizing that it wasn't her fault, and now they must concentrate on continuing to do things correctly. Zoe appears, wanting to have a conversation with Park, prompting Giseo to leave, feeling envious. The protagonist seizes this opportunity to reveal his emotions to Zoe. However, even though she reciprocates his feelings, she is torn due to her professional commitments, understanding she cannot be involved with both sides and is dedicated to her career. Following this conversation, Park escorts Zoe to the bus stop, where prior to her departure, he suggests that he intends to dismantle Yangda Industries, allowing her to love him freely without any limitations. Several days later, Park places a significant call to a long-standing friend, who is revealed to be Lee, the individual who consistently humiliated him during their school days until Park stood up for him. Throughout the years, Park has strategically invested his financial resources alongside Lee in Yangda Industries. They capitalize on the public controversies instigated by G, purchasing shares when the stock price plummeted as a result of these scandals. Subsequently, when Chang succeeded in recovering and elevating the stock price, they would reap a profit. They repeated this for years, since G was always a problematic son who appeared on television every month with a new scandal, so Chang took away his privileges and put Zoe in charge. Now that we know Park is not broke and his revenge plan started when he was in prison, we return to the bar where things are going very well, and they have decided to expand the team. The first person to show up is Tony, an American who came to Korea looking for his dad. Giseo tells Park that hiring a bilingual worker would be very helpful, as it would attract more foreigners, so they decide to hire him. Then, we switch to the other side of the story, where Chang is informed that a mysterious investor has bought more shares in the company and now has a significant stake. Thinking it was a hostile takeover, Chang orders an investigation into the name of this important shareholder, and upon discovering it is Park, he ends up laughing hysterically and tells his assistant not to worry, as he will handle the matter that same day. A little while later, he enters the bar where everyone is surprised to see him, especially Yang, his son, who hadn't told him he worked there. Park takes a seat across from him, and they engage in a rather tense dialogue, during which Park cautions him against attempting to seize control of his company, as he has no desire to count him among his adversaries. In response, the protagonist explains that the sole reason for his investment in the company was his awareness of Park's relentless nature, making it a sound investment. Chang laughs at the compliment he just received from the young man and tells him that he's been warned. It would be better not to try anything with his shares, or a war will be declared that he won't win. At that moment, we see a flashback of Park when he was in prison. There he received a visit from Lee, who had come to thank him for defending him and to tell him that from that day on, G left him alone. At that moment, Park tells him that he did the right thing and is glad to see that he's okay. He also mentions that when he gets out of prison, he will do everything possible to destroy Yangda Industries and create a much better company. Immediately, Lee interrupts him to say that he will study investments and business administration, so he wants to help him with that plan. From that particular day onward, Park acquired his most significant partner and provided him with the funds he had obtained from his father's life insurance policy to invest in Yangda, thereby enhancing his influence until the opportune moment arrived. Returning to the present, Lee convenes with Park to inform him that he has an individual of great importance to introduce to him, subsequently leading him to Mrs. Kang, who is a prominent investor in Jiangda and harbors intentions to supplant Chang as president. At present, Kang possesses an equivalent number of shares as Chang, yet if a vote were to occur and Park cast his vote in her favor, it is highly probable they could achieve a victory, given that Chang has demonstrated vulnerability in his position over the past few years. The speculation of a vote reaches Chang, prompting him to extend an invitation to Mrs. Kang for a luncheon at his residence, where he conveys his appreciation for her backing of the company, with the hope that she will align with him when the moment arrives. Nevertheless, once Mrs. Kang departs, her assistant presents Chang with several photographs distinctly showing that Park had met with her a few days earlier. This initiates the conflict, and Chang's initial action is to acquire ownership of the building where Park's bar is located. subsequently raising the rent by 50% with the intention of compelling them to shut down their business operations. Furthermore, his current contract is nearing its expiration and Chang is not inclined to renew it. Recognizing that he lacks alternative options, Park approaches Mrs. Kang to inform her that he intends to sell a portion of his shares. He requires the funds to rescue his bar. She cannot comprehend why he is so invested in the bar, to which Park responds that it is not about the location, but rather about the individuals. He is deeply concerned about his friends because he regards them as his family and cannot bear to leave them without employment. At the bar, Giseo engages in a conversation with Yang where he intends to terminate his employment, believing that the assault on the bar is due to his father not wanting him to work there, and if he dismisses him, it will ease the situation. When Park returns and discovers that Giseo has terminated Yang, he becomes extremely furious with him and tells him that this is not the manner in which you treat family. They are not an old burden you discard when circumstances become challenging. Due to this, he contacts Yang and requests him to return, and subsequently he dismisses Giseo, who has demonstrated that he doesn't appreciate people as much as he does. Then he informs everyone that he has successfully secured sufficient funds for a new location, so now circumstances will improve. Meanwhile, President Chang is strategizing his next move. He understands that the most effective way to eliminate Park is by taking away his people, so he invites Giseo to an exceptionally luxurious dinner and offers her a position with a highly tempting salary. However, Giseo still remains loyal to Park and declines the offer. Meanwhile, Ji, who was listening to all of this, waits for Giseo outside the building and offers to buy her a coffee, as he has something important to discuss with her. At the cafe, he uses all his tricks to persuade Giseo to betray Park, but the young woman stands firm and says that they will soon defeat them. Upon hearing this, Gion chuckles and informs her that his family never experiences defeat, as they are even capable of committing murder for triumph. He then admits that the day he ran over Park's father, he wasn't truly intoxicated, and it was entirely an act of vengeance for the punch he received at school, a demonstration of what they are willing to do to uphold their pride and social standing. What Ji didn't expect was that Issei was recording the conversation with her phone, and when he realizes it, he chases her into the street and, upon catching up with her, hits her in front of many people. At that moment, the young woman starts screaming for help. A group of people gathers to restrain Ji and record what is happening, and immediately he pulls out a wad of bills and throws them into the air, creating a distraction and making his escape. Fortunately, Park arrives just in time and lands another punch, reminding us of that day at school. Then he subdues Ji along with his friends until the police arrive to take him away the next morning. The images of him attacking a defenseless girl in the middle of the street become national news. This has affected his father's image, who is gradually losing the respect of his partners in the company, as they believe that if he can't control his son, he certainly won't be able to manage all of Yangda Industries. Plus, with Jiseo's recording, the public learns Gihon is a killer. They insist that the case should be thoroughly investigated once more, and that their financial resources should not be permitted to interfere with the course of justice. Consequently, Park considers this to be the ideal opportunity for Kang to initiate a vote and assume Chang's position. At Yangda Industries, Chang convenes with Su and Ji to deliberate on how to address this predicament. During the meeting, Gyun behaves erratically, so Chang ends up throwing him out of his office. Then he asks, "So if she has any ideas," to which she responds by telling him he must do something drastic. It's not just about his son. The partners are not happy with his performance, and if he spends resources protecting Ji, he will sink with him. After hearing this, Chang calls his son and orders him to go to the police station and turn himself in. Meanwhile, he prepares the best defense as they did years ago and ensures that he won't set foot in prison. Gyun obeys his father and goes to the police station to turn himself in and cooperate with the authorities. While waiting at the police station, he sees a statement from Yangda Industries on television where his father appears, revealing that Jihan acted on his own and he was unaware of everything that has happened. Additionally, he adds that Jihan bribed many people and did everything behind his family's back, so he is merely a victim of his son's sinister schemes. After the statement, Chang calls Mrs. Kang to his office to boast about how he handled the situation. The public seems to believe him, and the partners will no longer vote to replace him. Shortly after, Gyung goes to trial, where he is sentenced to 7 years in prison. During his first week locked up, So goes to visit him and brings a lot of documents. Upon seeing them, Ji believes they are preparing appeals to get him out of there. But in reality, they force him to sign a resignation of his company shares, showing that his father has decided to betray him completely and leave him with nothing. At Park's bar, Hyun arrives with an entirely new appearance. Let's recall that she is a transgender girl and has consistently felt uneasy with her looks. She tells the group that she has signed up for a MasterChef-style culinary program and wants to find out if she has their support. The team gets excited and tells her she can count on them to cheer her on from the stands. Meanwhile, Yang, who has been closely following what is happening with his brother, goes to his father to tell him that he wants to return to the company now that Ji is not there. He wants to be trained to be his successor and promises that he will do things right. Chung, who would greatly benefit from having his son return, ultimately agrees and provides him with a position within the company so he can acquire all the essential knowledge to eventually become his successor. A week later, the competition commences, and Hyun astonishingly wins the initial round with the highest score, leaving Yangda's chef in second place. All of this works wonderfully for the bar, which gets a lot of free publicity and ends up attracting the attention of an investor who wants to talk to Park about a potential partnership that will bring many benefits for everyone. Just then, the police show up looking for Tony, whom they fine for putting up hundreds of posters without permission on the streets. It turns out that he has been conducting an exhaustive search for his father because he wants to be recognized by him to obtain his citizenship. Meanwhile, the investor tells Park that they will meet later. In the meantime, he sends him to gather all the business owners in the building, as he is interested in investing in all of them. The next day, the second round of the contest takes place and the result is the same. Hyun takes first place, leaving the competition far behind, and everything indicates that she will be the judge's favorite in the final round. Park, who has met with the other business owners in the building, shares the good news with them and recommends making slight improvements to their businesses so that the investors his friend will bring are very impressed and increase the amount of money they will give. The proprietors attentively listen to him and allocate the limited funds they possess towards enhancing their businesses. Nevertheless, when the scheduled time for the meeting arrives, Park and the other proprietors discover an unoccupied office. The office that remains occupied is Chang's, where the alleged investor is seen celebrating with him, unveiling that it was all a scheme to pit the neighbors against Park. Consequently, Park is being berated by everyone, as numerous individuals expended money they couldn't afford on the enhancements, and will now face bankruptcy due to him. Faced with this, Park begins to consider selling the rest of his shares to solve the problem he caused, although this would mean giving up his plan for revenge against Chang and admitting his defeat. On the other hand, Tony manages to find his grandmother with the help of Park and the team, and it turns out she is a very wealthy woman who is obsessed with the cooking show, so she promises to invest in it if Hyun wins the competition. Currently, the entire pressure of the situation is now resting on Hyun, who was already feeling quite anxious as she appeared in the final round. Meanwhile, in Yang's offices, Dang, who is desperately seeking his father's approval, spreads the rumor that Hyun is transgender as a way to tarnish her image before the contest. When the rumor goes viral, Hyun feels so embarrassed that she runs out of the bar, leaving everyone wondering if she will participate. Later, So goes to find Yang and asks him if he spread the rumor, to which he admits that he did. Consequently, she reproaches him for spreading something so sensitive. Nevertheless, Zhang tells him that he will do whatever it takes to be his father's successor, as it is what he has always wanted. Fortunately, on the day of the contest, Hyun appears completely renewed and accepts before the public who she is, completely destroying Yang's hopes of winning the contest. With Hyun's victory, she is now the best chef in Korea, and Tony's grandmother fulfills her promise by investing in Park to fix all the problems and improve the building to its best condition. Not far from there, Jiseo has found out what Jang has done to her and goes in search of him to give him a beating. At that very moment, he confesses that he's always harbored a profound love for her. But since he was never renowned or wealthy, she never glanced in his direction. Now he's striving to become the leader of Yangda Industries to win her heart. However, Jiseo informs him that it will not occur and departs, leaving him utterly heartbroken. This is where we see a villain being born, so Yang meets with his father, who for the first time looks at him with pride, seeing that he is as treacherous as he is, and now he might become his worthy successor. We travel 4 years into the future, where we see that everything has turned out very well for our protagonists. Park is the proprietor of the entire building, which is occupied with highly profitable enterprises, while his dining establishment boasts the finest chef in all of Korea. Despite this, circumstances have not turned out favorably for Chang, who remains the president of Yangda but has received a diagnosis of pancreatic cancer, resulting in his confinement to the central hospital. Ji, who was granted an early release from incarceration due to exemplary conduct, makes a visit to his father in the medical facility. However, his father is displeased to see him and instructs him to depart, declaring that he is no longer his offspring. Conversely, we observe that Giseo has collapsed and needed to be transported to the hospital. It appears that excessive work has exacted a toll on her, and during her examination, she encounters Ji. Park, having become aware of the incident involving Giseo, purchases a thoughtful gift and proceeds to visit her. However, it turns out she is not present in the hospital because Ji has abducted her and is holding her captive at a concealed location that he exclusively shares with Park, directing him to come by himself. Yang, who would have appeared to visit Giseo due to his enduring affection for her, observes this and trails Park to the destination specified by Ji. At the designated location, both individuals are caught off guard by Jeon's henchmen, who aggressively ram them with their vehicles. In a tense moment, Yang becomes paralyzed with fear, and Park shoves him out of harm's way, but consequently he ends up being struck by one of the adversaries. Due to this, the protagonist sustains significant injuries, and fortunately Choi arrives to assist him. However, the men take Yang and Yeseo with them meanwhile. So has a discussion with Chang where she accuses him of having raised a monster and regrets having stayed by his side all these years and having chosen her job over everything else. Several minutes later, Chang receives a phone call from Ji, who expresses that all he ever desired was for Chang to be proud of him. However, he now feels compelled to do dreadful things and warns that Chang will also suffer the consequences of his errors. During the conversation, Ji becomes distracted, allowing Jang to seize the opportunity to liberate himself and rescue Giseo. Subsequently, he catches Gi-hun off guard and strikes him with a wooden plank. Returning to the scene with Chang, he is visited by Park, who has managed to escape from his confinement to request his assistance in locating their mutual friends. At this moment, Chang reiterates what he had mentioned to him on that day at school. If Park kneels before him and requests help, he shall receive it. Concerned about the well-being of his friends, Park ultimately concedes and kneels before the elder Chang, who then proceeds to write down an address on a slip of paper and hands it over to him. The group hastily rushes to rescue Giseo, who is desperately fleeing from the nefarious individuals pursuing her. Fortunately, Park and Choi arrive just in time, and the latter engages in a fight with them, as Park is still recovering from his injuries. However, this does not prevent him from confronting Ji, who unexpectedly surprises him from behind. Fortunately, our protagonist ultimately emerges triumphant, and they successfully subdue the villains until the authorities arrive. Subsequently, Ji is promptly sent directly to jail, and Chang will soon face accusations of complicity with his son. Seizing this opportunity, Mrs. Kang and Tony's grandmother unite their efforts to acquire the shares of Yangda Industries, thereby stripping Chang of his power. Chang then appears at Park's restaurant, kneeling before him and expressing his sincere apologies for all the harm he caused, regretting having allowed revenge to consume his life. From that pivotal moment onward, everything seamlessly falls into place, allowing our protagonist to finally live in tranquility, liberated from Chang's oppressive control. Thus, this captivating series comes to a close. Please subscribe, activate notifications, and thank you sincerely for watching.